In a world in which the discussion between gender and value has fluctuated throughout the ages, it's difficult to draw the line between what is and isn't the proper perspective. Joined by a relatively mild feminist and thoroughly introspective philosopher, our listeners will follow an analysis on Achebe's Things Fall Apart, where we'll highlight these different values. I'm your host, Supreme Hosting Extraordinaire, and I welcome you to tune in on this edition of Specs. Things Fall Apart follows the life of traditional, emotionally driven Okonkwo of Umuofia, a powerful Nigerian clan. Our protagonist struggles in communicating genuine emotions and refuses to go against his tradition in an attempt to be the man his father failed to be. His internal difficulties illustrate different motives and customs of his clan during the struggle to resist European expansion and imperialism. Perspectives on gender roles, masculinity, and tradition impacted by Okonkwo's subconscious desires become uprooted during his emotional turmoils, and that's what we'll be picking apart about Things Fall Apart. Welcome to the show, thoroughly introspective philosopher. Today I want to discuss Okonkwo as a father. It isn't hard to tell that Okonkwo wants his children to follow in his footsteps, especially his sons. We see multiple times throughout the book how he insists his views onto his children. What could explain his persistence and tunnel vision?
Thanks for having me, Supreme Hosting Extraordinaire. When it comes to parenting and being a father, it could be argued that the strict traditions of Umuofia as a clan has the biggest impact on Okonkwo's style. However, there's an important factor that plays into this. Anoka, Okonkwo's father. Okonkwo is truly caught up in the subconscious competition with Onokwa in being both a better man and father. In fact, he dispels the disappointment his father makes him feel by thinking about his own strength and success. Page 66. This Oedipal dynamic can be seen especially in his relationship with his son Nwoye. He's hard on Nwoye because he wants to prove to be the better father, and plans to go about this by successfully raising a perfect son. This explains why he's always comparing Nwoye to himself. Okonkwo preaches about all the successes he already had at Nwoye's age, how he was already fending for himself, because in reality he wants Nwoye to exceed these achievements and therefore demonstrate his superiority over Onokwa. Page 66.
This strictness is strange considering Okonkwo didn't have this type of father figure at all. How does Okonkwo's distorted image of a father impact how he brings up Nwoye?
He projects unrealistic expectations onto Nwoye because of the supposedly inadequate ones his father had for him. Okonkwo feels that the same hopelessness and impatience he felt for his father for Nwoye, because Nwoye fails to reach the majority of his extreme expectation. He implies he already lost because there's too much of his grandfather in him. Page 66. An important metaphor further emphasizes Okonkwo's pessimism. A chick that will grow into a cock can be spotted the very day it hatches, he says, in which Nwoye is the chick that Okonkwo sees no future for. Page 66. Nwoye becomes a physical symbol of Okonkwo's failures, especially after he joins the Christian missionaries.
That's interesting. Directly following that metaphor, Okonkwo mentions that despite his efforts to make Nwoye a man, there's not only too much of his grandfather in him, but too much of his mother in him. In the context of your analysis, what does this say about Okonkwo's views on motherly roles or motherly roles in Umuofia in general? Let's hear what relatively mild feminist has to say.
Glad to be here. On the topic of gender roles in Umuofia, there's a distinct patriarchy that mimics outdated tradition. Here, Okonkwo is essentially deeming Nwoye hopeless for being like his mother. He is therefore suggesting that the childish femininity inherited growing up is what is holding Nwoye back from being successful. A similar perspective can be seen when Okonkwo talks about his daughter, Nzima. She has the right spirit to meet Okonkwo's expectations and could even be argued to be his favorite child. Despite that, she isn't enough. Okonkwo fantasizes about how much more convenient it would have been if Nzima to be a boy and how he would have been happier if she was. Yet again, he pinpoints the blame of his drawbacks on women, displaying a clear representation of the instilled patriarchy in Umuofia.
Fair observation. Altogether, the complexity in which Okonkwo was brought up, his straight ideas of a father, the patriarchal influence of his society, ends up dramatically impacting his mindset and follows him in raising and making opinions on his own children. This shows how vital smaller details can be in the upbringing of a person's actions and lifestyle. Can we blame Okonkwo's faults on him as a person despite knowing how much his environment shaped his character? If anything is made clear in Achebe's Things Fall Apart, it is the fact that the women of Umuofia society are by default put below their male counterparts. There's a clear distinction between the power of a wife and husband, son and daughter, bride and suitor. The raw treatment of women is below par, even when Achebe brings up occasional details that grant them power. What does this show about Umuofia society?
Women in Umuofia are oppressed by the traditions of the society they were born into. If the way Okonkwo orders his wives around like dogs and uses them as anger-relieving punching bags half the time is anything to go by. In terms of hierarchy, men are the elite. They are the benefiters. The blame is constantly set on the women, and rarely are the things women do as honorable as the things men do. The sweeter, brighter aspects of life are represented as the fatherland, while the motherland is full of sorrowness and bitterness. Page 134. The diction used in describing the fatherland and the motherland further emphasize the clear divide in gender hierarchy, highlighting the distinct oppression of women who appear to constantly be subjugated by their male counterparts.
Social class seems to have an important role in women's subjugation. What justifies Umuofia's unbalanced separation of power?
The gender hierarchy is a clear reflection of the pre-imperialist and eventually post-society of Nigeria that Umuofia is set in. Umuofia as a clan appears to be a developed hunter-gathering group or some variety of that type of society that is common in 19th century Africa. Women in these societies are valued for not their ability to support their husband, but also in their fertility and means of raising a child. Women's roles in Umuofia conveyed this time period in their tradition. It's acknowledged that while a child may belong to its father, it always comes back and seeks sympathy from its mother in times of need. This highlights how, although men are still superior overall, women are considered reliable for being the ones who have guided and raised their children, which illustrates one of the few things women are respected for in pre-imperialist African societies. Whether or not that justifies the general treatment of Umuofia's women, I couldn't say. Fertility, in a way, is what determines a woman's worthiness. Although mother is supreme, women as a whole are not.
The social class and patriarchy of Umuofia appears to be entirely dependent on the existing tradition of the clan in its time period. So, in the final analysis, history defines the customs and tendencies of a society. Wow, I really feel like we dissected Things Fall Apart in terms of gender roles and pre-imperialist African society as a whole. It was interesting to see how much of an impact tradition had on a small scale, like Okonkwo as a person, and on a large scale, like Umuofia's clan as a whole. Thank you, relatively mild feminist and thoroughly introspective philosopher, and all of our lovely listeners for joining us today on Specs.
Bye.
Until next time.